Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to talk about video games. Well, 2022 is almost over, and at the beginning of this year, I skipped making a most anticipated games list. Those always tend to go poorly for some reason, with games either not ending up coming out during the year or ending up on this very list. And there were some games that did disappoint me in some way. They aren't necessarily bad games, but they just didn't work for me or could be better. So here are 5 of the games this year that just didn't work for me. I'm always on the lookout for new 4-player co-op games, and I was tentatively excited for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I'm honestly not much of a Borderlands fan. The gameplay is a bit repetitive, and there's an annoyingly overwhelming amount of loot dropping everywhere. But I thought it might be more fun with friends, and I like the concept of taking place within a Dungeons & Dragons or Bunkers and Badasses campaign. The game was fine. It never would have kept my attention solo, but with a group of friends, it was fun enough to run around shooting baddies and listening to some good voice acting and decent jokes. However, it did get really repetitive. Outside of the main story missions, any combat area we found ourselves in looked pretty much the same, and we fought a bunch of the same kinds of enemies. Some of the writing was funny, but it was also excessive. Characters droned on and on, which doesn't work so well when you have 4 people waiting around to get back to shooting things. The worst part was how annoying it was to manage inventory. One person having their inventory open meant fast travel was closed to the group, and there is so much inventory to manage. We had to make rules for ourselves about when we were allowed to open our menus. We ended up skipping almost all of the side content and being woefully underleveled for the final stages, but made it through. There are just a lot of places where this game could have been better. Chinatown Detective Agency is a game I backed on Kickstarter a while back. It was heavily inspired by Carmen Sandiego, which excited me to no end. I played the Broderbund Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego as a kid so much, and I loved the TV show. You play a private detective in the near future, choosing your clients and cases and traveling around the world to solve mysteries. The game does have a lot going for it. The pixel art and atmosphere are great. The voice acting and writing are good, but design-wise, there are some issues that are hard to get past. One thing, which sounds cool at first but just doesn't quite work, is that the game requires real-world research. You're sometimes presented with a problem that you need to Google to find the answer to. The issue is that once a few people have done this, you're most likely to find a walkthrough or guide as your top search results, so it doesn't really feel like doing research. The way time and money are handled also isn't great. You need to book flights around the world at certain times, but if you get to the airport early, you just skip forward in time until you get to the right spot. Time was never a real factor for me in any case, and having to wait for flight times just seemed like a waste of it. And for some reason, you're not allowed to save the game mid-case, which is just a bad choice. Cases can take a while. I really like the idea of this game, but the execution just didn't work. I love a humorous management simulation game and was looking forward to 2 Point Campus, the follow-up to 2 Point Hospital from a few years ago. In this game, you manage a series of universities, building facilities, choosing courses, trying to make your students succeed while also making as much money as possible. I'm having a hard time articulating what exactly the cause is, but the game just didn't grab me like the hospital one did. Though there's plenty to say about education systems, healthcare just seems more ripe for satire and dark humor. That was kind of missing here. Each university could only offer so many courses and provide so many challenges for the player. While you do need to offer extracurriculars and build libraries and things, there just didn't seem like there was that much to actually manage. Very few curveballs were ever thrown at me, and the game became more about waiting and trying not to run out of money than doing a whole lot of management. The stakes just seemed a bit low, and I ended up falling off this one a few universities in. There is no shortage of 2D indie Metroidvanias lately, which is great for me. However, not all of them end up working out, like Souldiers. The game looks amazing, with some really bright and beautiful pixel art. The concept is good, and the dialogue, when it's there, is pretty good too. You get to choose between a basic sword and board warrior, a caster, or an archer to play as. I thought the first dungeon of the game was great. Well-paced, good difficulty, interesting enemies, and a cool boss fight at the end. As it went on though, my feelings started to sour. Basic enemies became way too spongy, taking too long to kill and being more dangerous to me than they should have been. Checkpoints got further and further apart, meaning I was often running through the same areas over and over. This is one of the games that has made me cringe every time a 2D action platformer is referred to as Souls-like. Stop trying to be Dark Souls, or at least recognize what makes Dark Souls good. It's not the respawn mechanics or parrying, it's the world. The world in Souldiers does have its share of shortcuts and secrets, but they generally don't lead to anything interesting, and each dungeon is its own contained area. This game started out very promising, but quickly just became a slog. I didn't hear anything about Circus Electrique until a few days before it was released, but from the description, it sounded right up my alley. A combination of management sim and tactics combat, this looked a lot like Darkest Dungeon, but with a steampunk circus setting. It was also made by Zen Studios, who made Operencia, an amazing dungeon crawler from 2019. Circus Electrique looks really cool, and during combat there are some great animations that give the characters a lot of personality. But in terms of balance between the management and combat, there are some major issues. For some reason, your trips to the city where combat occurs are limited to 2 encounters before forcing you back to the circus. And the management there was tedious, involving putting on circus acts to gain money and reputation by putting together the optimal combination of performer classes. This was a very unrewarding part of things and seemed like busy work where different decisions made very little difference overall. And even the combat went on for way too long, with enemies taking forever to kill. My initial excitement for the game really came crashing down just a couple hours in, when I realized that they didn't really nail either main part of the game in a way that made me want to continue. So those were some of the games that kind of disappointed me this year. Leave me a comment and let me know if there was anything that didn't quite live up to your expectations. I'll be back in a few days to go over my top 10 games of 2022, along with probably some honorable mentions. I'll see you then. If you want to see more, check out another of my videos here. I have a Patreon if you want to support my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.